Good, beautiful Sunday morning to everybody. It's an absolute belter here in Scotland. And today I've got my good friend Hilary from the Sweet Escape. She's going to be talking briefly around her 10-day Vipassana, but also much more we want to talk about on this particular podcast is I'm getting feedback here. Hold on a wee sec. Something is. Can you hear that?
No, don't think so.
My voice speaking back to me. I wonder if I accidentally pressed something.
I can't hear it at this end.
Right, stop now. Right, I'm going to have to leave the studio and come back in because, sorry.
I can hear a little bit, yeah.
Do you know what it was? Instagram was open in my laptop and it was.
No, all right. Yeah.
It's the first time I've actually gone live with Instagram. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. Hilary, fantastic to see you. How are you doing? What's the weather like with you?
I'm good. It's cold. It's lovely and sunny, but it's freezing. It's getting cold.
Hence
Yeah.
the fleece. So listen, before we get into the sugar chat, can you please give us a brief overview of the Vipassana and how absolutely high and how Kirsten and I were so envious of your vibrational state when we spoke to you after it?
I'm not sure it's possible to give a brief overview. It's quite a immense thing. But yeah, I'll maybe just give you a quick overview of the history of it because I think that helps kind of explain what it is. Because I mean, I'd heard of Vipassana. I first heard about Vipassana about 20 years ago. I was traveling in Thailand and everyone was doing it. So my friend went and did it, and I wanted to do it and I just never got round to it. So it's kind of been on my mind for 20 years. But when I went to do it over Christmas and New Year, just there, I didn't really have any idea about the history of it, how it came about or anything. So I think most of us know that the Buddha sat under a tree and became enlightened. And he was so amazed with his experience that he taught it to all the monks. And then it was passed down through the lineage in India for thousands of years. I think they started to muddy the waters with the technique. People started adding in their own little bits, and it became Vipassana kind of just disappeared in its pure form in India. But in Burma, there's a lineage that can be traced right back that kept the form pure. And the man that teaches the Vipassana course now, S.N. Goenka, the Indian guy born in Burma. So he was a big businessman. I'm not sure what he did, but he was, was a wealthy man. But he started getting really severe migraines. He visited this was back in the 1950s. He started traveling around the world, visiting all the top doctors, paying huge sums of money to try and find a cure for his migraines. You probably know where this is going.
And healing stories.
Yeah, so they were giving him morphine for the pain, but they were saying to him, we can't keep giving you morphine; it's addictive, and we're just going to have to keep giving you more and more. It's not a solution. So he went back to Burma, and he was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And a friend actually said to him, "There's a Vipassana course." If a friend ever says to you, "I've just been on a Vipassana course." So he decided he had nothing else to lose, so he went to this 10-day course. And they say that statistically, you're most likely to leave on day 2 or day 6. And Goenka got to day 2 and he packed his bags to leave. He'd had enough after a day. But somebody talked him into staying, and he stayed, and he became enlightened. You feel the peace, you see the light. He became enlightened almost immediately. So he worked with this teacher for 15 years. And then this teacher said, it's time, I want you to take this to the world. And there'd been some kind of prediction or something that said at this time, Vipassana was going to there's explode around the world. Anyway, Goenka's like, well, I'll go to India. I don't know very many people, but I'll go and I'll teach. So he went to India. He went for 3 months. He knew less than 100 people. That was 1969. He never left India, and now there's 300 places worldwide that are teaching the technique. They get fully booked in advance, 3 months in advance. They're fully booked with waiting lists. They do no advertising, no marketing. The whole system's run on volunteers, from the centre managers that spend 6 months there to, all the committees they have to run the centres. Everything is volunteers. Not one person in the organisation gets paid a penny. The centre, I know. And the best bit is it's completely free. You can go and you do not have to pay. And Goenka said this back in 1969 with his first course. He says, I want this to be free. And everybody laughed at him and said, look, you're in India. Poverty's rife. People are going to be lining up at the door for free food and accommodation. And he just laughed. He said, well, actually, no, because they have to work. They're up at 4 a.m, meditating from 4:30 till 9 o'clock at night. It's not a free ride. It's definitely not a free ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that organization, and every single, I think there's like 200 and something permanent premises, and then they've got a few other places they use, but every premise they own has been bought by donations from students. So at the end of the course, they say, if you've benefited and you want to pay it forward, make a donation. But there's no pressure. You can just walk out and nobody would know whether you've paid or not. It's really, really well done.
Fantastic.
And Goenka actually says himself, it's actually even more powerful if you go back and serve. So I've actually applied to go back and serve on a 10-day course, which, you go and you help out, making sure everything's running smoothly, and help out in the kitchen, do a bit of cleaning. And I'm not really sure all what's involved, but you get to meditate for a few hours a day and you get to serve. And Goenka says that's where the power is. It's the people that come back to serve. People spending 6 months managing a centre. They're serving. So yeah,
it's given of your most valuable asset, which is your time.
yes.
And also, it's a bit like when I came back from Sedona the first time. You want to tell everybody how incredible you feel, because it's free. But that doesn't mean to say it's easy.
No,
and obviously going to Sedona is not free, but in actual fact, the technique is free. You just absolutely have to use it, and then giving back. Yes, Louis, I can see you on there, being of service to others. I mean, it's in every single tradition, whether it's business, whether it's spiritual, whether it's religious, whether it's the, the AA type communities. It's give back, get your, as Lynn McTaggart says, get over yourself and start giving to others. In terms of feeling, it's powerful in all these worlds. Now, I think there's a couple of things we were chatting about. I think one, what has this got to do with sugar addiction? Well, any addiction, whatever one you have, or whatever one's causing you most grief, it's all about the mind. We know that. Very quickly you can get off the physical addiction, and that's when you have to then start going, this is all in my mind, and the mind talking to you, telling you it's a fridge, one way that will not do you any harm. So really, the way I see all of healing and all of everything is, having the full control over what you're thinking and feeling and understanding what that is. But that's an ongoing journey. Like you said to me earlier, you're not having to let go right now because you're in that Zen state, which is fantastic. But we all know you go back into that world 3 or 4 months down the line. You start to get involved again. And I think we all do that. And that's why we obviously have to start living in communities where we just actually live like this. But until then, until we all understand the voice in the head isn't real, the emotions aren't real, it's not us, let's talk about actual sugar addiction, because we know that if all the drugs in the world, what's killing people most is sugar.
Yes.
And because it doesn't get you drunk, because it doesn't free a lot of, it's very socially acceptable. Apart from in my world, obviously, where I judge everybody. So, no, I'm joking. I understand, and I've seen, how, the control it has over people rather than people having control over it. And I want to talk to eventually as well as when you take your primary addictions and your secondary addictions. When you take one addiction out, how you can move to another one, how sneaky the mind is, and about replacing habits. Now, you've been studying this for how long?
Oh, sugar. I mean, I started getting interested in nutrition in my 20s. I studied nutrition from 2014 to 2017. I did nutrition. And then after that, I've always been fascinated by the brain and how we work. And it wasn't until I think 2021, I think it was just before we set up the kitchen at Barmulloch, and I found this whole little corner on the internet that was kind of dedicated to sugar addiction. And up until that point, I had, I'd joke that, oh, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to chocolate, I'm addicted to Iron Brew, but it was just kind of jokingly. And I think people do jokingly say I'm addicted to this or that, but we never take it seriously. It's food. It's part of our culture. But when I found this little corner on the internet talking about sugar addiction, it kind of started changing the way I thought about it massively. And that was the key thing in me kind of starting the next step of my journey into kind of overcoming sugar addiction. Because I don't think you can overcome it until you realize you have it. It's like alcoholics, you have to admit that you have a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the first step, isn't it?
Yes.
Admit, that you need help.
Realize that it is actually an addiction. And I think a lot of people are resistant to that as well. I'm not giving up my this or that.
Well, I've been talking about this all week, how people come to me and I explain how they can heal, and then they go to somebody else because they don't really like what I've said.
Yeah. It's just, it's the norm. We've actually made the natural unnatural just by the big, corporations that put all this food into the system have kind of made the natural unnatural, but we just don't see it.
Can you talk briefly about that book? Because I think, well, a lot of people I know have been reading it, but I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole and it just gets me raging. So I don't really want to go down it. But can you just talk, about the fats and the sugars and the combination and how that,
how
to light your brain up.
So they know the food companies, I don't know, Nestle and all the big food companies that make all this ultra processed food that's not actually food. There's a thing they call the bliss point, and they hire teams of scientists to research it. And basically it's a perfect combination of fat, salt and sugar. So they just change the amounts till they get this point where you eat something and you've probably done it yourself, Lily. You eat something, oh God, I want to just keep eating this.
Rory McPhee's seaweed.
I love it.
That's the most exquisite taste sensation I've ever had in my life.
That was amazing. That was really
wasn't
good.
it?
Yeah. Although I imagine if someone's got a diet mainly of sugar, seaweed's going to be like the worst. I know. Probably. But so I've lost my train of thought now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the bliss point.
Bliss point.
So they've created this, the scientists, and they've created this perfect point. I think probably something like salted caramel is probably a good example, because that's, I mean, I know for me that's one of my weak points. Just like, so they've got this bliss point, but this combination of fat, salt, and sugar is found nowhere in nature. So these companies know this, so they're constantly evolving their products to just make us want to keep coming back for more.
And kids, that's what makes me so sad, because if you don't fully understand it for yourself, how can you help your kids understand? You're being played.
Totally. And this all started. This all started, this goes back decades. And it's really interesting with the cigarette. If you go back and look at what happened with the cigarettes, they would say to kids, cigarettes kill, smoking kills. And the kids are like, oh, we don't care. Do you know what got the kids off the cigarettes? Was telling them about all the bad practices that tobacco companies were doing. They know it's killing you. They're making billions of pounds killing you. And that's when that's when the teenagers started to go, what? They're making money out of making us sick. And that's when they got enraged. So it's, we can't tell people what they can and can't be eating. It's a choice at the end of the day. No, it doesn't work. And it's a choice at the end of the day. Even if we do kind of start bringing in laws around sugar, people are, it's like alcohol and cigarettes. People are always going to keep doing it. It's a sociable thing. We can't eradicate it completely, but what we can do is get rid of all the ultra process, or, start the process of, especially for the kids. We shouldn't be advertising sugary cereals to kids with cartoon characters. I mean, it's insanity. When you take a step back and look at it and realize it is insanity. I mean, when you look at what sugar is, if you've got like cocaine comes from poppies, doesn't it? And there's a process it goes through and then it becomes a white powder. Heroin's the same. Sugar's exactly the same. It's a natural product. It goes through a process, it becomes a white powder. And when something's a white powder and it comes into your body, we don't need to, that's usually held within the matrix of the original piece of fruit or veg or whatever it is, plant. And we have to break that down to get it into our bodies. But with the powders, we don't have to break anything down. It just hits our systems instantly. And that's what gives it, obviously with the drugs, it's like, you get the hit. But with like you were saying, with the sugar, it's more subtle. And it's like a sedative. And it was interesting because I've got some assignments due at uni at the moment. And yesterday I was having I had a chat with my lecturer and I was struggling with one of my assignments. And usually in that sort of situation where I'm stressing and my brain's like, I would just come out and I'd be like, right, I'm going to the supermarket, I'm going to get this, and I'd plan all the things I was going to get to eat to comfort myself. And I came out and I felt my brain doing that, like, we need to go and get something to comfort ourselves. This has been so stressful. And then it was just like, wait a minute, no. And it wasn't like a conscious decision. It's just like, I just don't have that urge there anymore. But obviously the habit of going to do it was still there. And the habit was like, let's do it. But my body was like, actually, no, I don't need this.
And I think as well, we need to be honest, you'll have times where it's easier and times where it's harder.
Yeah.
Depends, like I've been quite open about my struggle with the cold water recently. I have not wanted to go in. And physically and emotionally, I'm like, you have to go in. You've got absolutely no choice. You want to stay well and strong, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
But why would that happen after all these years of just not even thinking about it? Swimsuit on, down, job done.
Yeah.
So this is the whole, and also it's back to the community, isn't it? Very easy to slip into bad habits, and because everybody else is doing it, it's okay. And that's, I suppose, the challenge. I think a really fascinating statistic for me is that 95% of shite is bought by women. That is quite terrifying because you're just like that. You can't say, you shouldn't eat this, you shouldn't eat that, if you're buying that all and bringing it into the house.
No.
So let's talk. Sorry.
I was just going to say, across Europe, the UK is the worst. I think our supermarkets are filled with about 50 to 60% ultra processed food. But if you go somewhere like Portugal, it's maybe 10, 20%. So I mean, I don't understand how that. What is it? The government that allows that? It's the government that's allowing that.
According to Vandana Shiva, it's the government. They're subsidising. Why could you go out and buy a shit burger or pizza? And these foods that can actually be amazing if they're made, consciously. But you can't get carrots to put through your juicer. You know what I mean? It's bonkers.
Well, it's the book you were talking about. I can't remember what it's called. Is it Chris Tolkien that wrote it? I can't remember the name of it, but he talks about that in the book. They actually did a study and they got people in and they gave them 2 different diets.
Ultra-processed people.
That's the one, ultra-processed people. So he talks about a study in there where they got in 2 groups of people for a month and they split them into the 2 groups. For the first month, one group ate an ultra-processed food diet and the second group ate exactly the same diet, but the foods were prepared by chefs in a kitchen. So, like you might get an ultra-processed pizza if you were in that group, but in the other group, they would get a pizza that had been made from scratch by a chef. And then halfway through, they switched and did the opposite diet. And by the end of it, the people that were on the ultra-processed, they've showed that the people that were on the ultra-processed food diet were putting on weight. It was changing them in different ways. It was a while ago I read it, but there was significant differences between the 2 diets, even though it was exactly the same food. But with the pizza, you have all the preservatives and additives in it for the processed one. Whereas if you make your own pizza, there's like 3 ingredients in a pizza.
Well, this is the thing. It's all the stuff that they're going in to get that bliss point, isn't it? And
Yeah.
then cheap and colourings and additives. But
Mhm.
not just that, you've got to go right back to what grain did they use and
Yeah.
how much, how many carcinogens are in that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think it's
so
worldwide now, there's only 2 different, types of wheat, and I think is it species? Not species, there's a term for it. There's 2 different kinds of wheat that they use to make flour, at the moment, but I think hundreds of years ago, there was 100 different types of wheat that they use, so they've kind of created a wheat that's hardy and yeah, so it's just this mono
but
crop.
the more it evolves, the more crap they've got to spray on it.
Yes, and
That is
the more they take out of a product, the more they then have to add back in to make it, like by law now you bleach the flour to make it look white, but you're taking out all the vitamins and minerals. So then you have to add all the vitamins and minerals back in by law. But and Chris talks about this in his book, there's like a matrix in a plant that
mhm,
holds all the nutrients and all the vitamins and minerals.
uh-huh.
And the scientists don't know how to break that down. There's thousands of things in there that we've not even discovered yet. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's magical. You think about it, it's nature. It's
Uh-huh.
designed to fuel us. It's magical.
How
And
did
then
we ever cut her off? I just don't
yeah, and we
get
break down that food, we break down the matrix, and all the magic comes out and makes us alive. But when you get a scientist in a lab, they can't recreate that matrix. If anything, they're just making mush. Anything that
absolutely.
disintegrates in your mouth instantly is
Well,
yeah,
chewing, it's interesting because my grandson said the other day, "Oh, I've got to chew it." And I thought, "Oh my God, yes, you're meant to chew." And anybody that's gone raw knows that you actually are. You spend a load of time and burn a lot of calories, etc., and do so many amazing things. But a lot of that food you don't really need to chew because it just basically breaks
yeah.
down.
And there's
And Zen Honeycutt, I want to talk about her, mums across America.
yes,
She's doing an incredible job with GMOs and just saying no to GMOs. And she's got a huge movement going on now. And I love her motto, we are unstoppable.
yeah,
Mums are not having it. And she has 3 boys. And when they were younger, they were all sick. And she was looking around at all her pals' kids that were all sick, allergies, asthma. I can't remember. One had a really life-threatening allergy. And she thought, there's something not right here. Took them off all the genetically modified foods. In 6 weeks, they were all better. Like, what the hell? Talk about food as medicine. And she would make her own pizzas again with the few toppings, but
yeah,
quality, the quality and non-genetically modified and no pesticides because pesticides, they kill pests, but they kill all our microbiome as well.
yeah.
So let's talk about. I'm Louis. I'm seeing you there. Louis has been struggling with sugar for a while. So I know that one of your plans. Let's start talking about solutions because we don't need
Yes.
to be depressed.
No.
What can we do? How can we change this? How can we be unstoppable?
Well, it's a big question. Well, I've started up a Substack, like a blog called The Sweet Escape. There's not a lot on there at the moment, but I'm planning to start. And I think it's you shared it with me, Lily. It's a triangle.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Because you'll probably do it better than me.
Yes, it's your emotional guidance system and the frequency of the emotions that we are in and how we can quite literally raise our own vibration doing a lot of the things that that we know we do a lot,
Excuse me.
and how we can consciously understand that we're in these frequencies. We'll be thinking something and we'll be doing something that's either helpful, taking us to disease, or taking us to ease. It's as simple as that. And how we can actually consciously, because most of us are going up and down this vibrational emotional scale unconsciously, getting triggered from the outside by smells, by pictures, by music, and all our senses are causing us to go up and down this scale. Other people in the workplace, at home, etc. We're going up and down. So we're absolutely out of control in terms of our emotions.
Yeah.
And of course, we know the gut biome plays a part. I'm actually going into the Wellness Hub to talk about this with Janice. What is causing the cravings, and how can we? And somebody's just put up I can eat a packet of chocolate biscuits. I remember when I was doing my fitness course, this girl saying, and she was slim and fit, but she said she actually, when she went in to get her paper in the morning back in the day, she could see the Mars bars and her mouth would start to. She was a sugar addict, so she was quite open and honest about that. So that emotional scale, that vibrational scale, is ruling our lives. And it's been able to go from doing that, like, unconsciously, what's happening? Why am I feeling like this? To going, oh, I'm feeling like this, and now I will do something about it, but preferably not eat a whole chocolate cake and then lick the cardboard.
Yes. So this is, I think it's good to be aware of this, because at that base of the triangle, that's where we're in the really dense energies, and we maybe don't even know that something needs to change. And that's where we feel the anger and the, you know, and the guilt and the shame. There's a lot of shame around sugar addiction. So there's a few different, I mean, for if there's people watching that are struggling with sugar and wanting to get off it, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can do, especially, I mean, just having the awareness that it's addictive is a huge step in the right direction. I think you talk a lot about intermittent fasting, which is great, and I do intermittent fasting. I eat within a specific window every day. But I think when you're starting out with trying to get off sugar, I think it's a good idea to not, you can still fast overnight, you know, you can have your last meal at 5 or 6 o'clock and then not eat again till, you know, 9 or 10 o'clock. You're still getting a good window there. But I think the problem with sugar is you're eating food that's not got a lot of nutrients in it. You're eating food that's probably not got a lot of, it's probably got a lot of fat in it. It's maybe not got a lot of protein, and it's probably all the wrong kind of
fats,
levels, wrong fats, the wrong levels. So I think if you're not eating breakfast at the moment, I would recommend putting it back in. I never, ever, ever ate breakfast. I just wasn't hungry in the morning. I struggled to eat breakfast sometimes till maybe 11, 12 o'clock be my first meal of the day. But when I first found out about sugar addiction and getting off it, that was the main thing, the advice they gave: start eating breakfast. So I did. It doesn't need to be anything big, you know, even just having an egg or some sauce, something with protein in it. At the moment, I just have porridge, which seems to work for me, but everyone's different. So find what works for you. But what you want to do is try and cut down on the carbohydrates, especially the refined ones like your pastas and your, I don't know, what's a refined carbohydrates?
A biscuit and bread.
White biscuits, white bread. If you can, and I know these are the things we crave. It's hard, you know, it's easy for me to sit here and say cut these things out, but it's a process and you have to, you know, work at it. I didn't get where I'm at overnight. I've worked for years, sometimes despaired and felt hopeless that this is ever going to change, but you know, just taking that first step. So yeah, making sure you're getting a good bit of protein with every meal. You're wanting things that are going to fill you up and satiate you. A lot of the processed foods don't satiate you, and that's another ploy from the manufacturers, that, you know, if it's not filling you up, it's not got the nutrients you need, so it's telling your brain that you've not been fed. So basically, there's another book called Overstuffed and Starved, it's called. Not read it yet, but I've just bought it. So we're stuffing ourselves with all this food, but there's nothing in it. It's, you know, it's not nutrient dense.
Empty.
It's empty
and
food.
Causing havoc with the blood sugar. And that's really the thinking about round the breakfast, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think what you said there, it's really valuable to know that a lot of this you need to try out on yourself. Because, you know, porridge doesn't work for me, whereas it clearly works for you. But I'm assuming you'll be putting stuff in it, are you? Nuts and seeds and
I'll put, like, getting things like flaxseed, nuts, seeds. I'll sometimes have goji berries. I mean, it's good to be careful with dried fruits if you're coming off sugar. I would recommend cutting it out even just for the first, you know, month or so while you're coming off sugar, because some people are fine with, I can eat a little bit of dried fruit now and it's not a problem, but some people do struggle with it, I know, in the addiction world. But
because there's varying degrees of the addiction, isn't there, in terms of the mind, in terms of your age, hormones, digestive enzymes, all your gut biome, you know, all of that is playing a part. And I think, you know, menopause, there's a huge amount of chat around that.
Yeah.
Menopausal thing, breastfeeding. There's loads of times where, you've got different needs. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm keep saying to my grandkids, that I want you to understand this stuff so that if you ever need to rein things in, get more energy, lose a bit of weight, or that you know exactly what to do, and you're not kind of
Yeah.
scrolling the internet
Yeah.
looking for the magic cure.
So the other thing I would say, if you're looking for some advice on how to move forward, is look at your environment, clean up your environment. What have you got in your house? Are there people in your house that don't support you? So you're maybe wanting to give up sugar, but your partner's, I'm not giving up my sugar. So you need to work out an arrangement with it. Because I know I lived with a flatmate years ago. I laugh about this because she filled the bottom drawer of the fridge full of chocolate bars, like every chocolate bar imaginable. She never ate any of them. She'd maybe eat one once in a while, because you have the people that can moderate sugar, and that they're quite happy. But of course, for a sugar addict, that's just like, it's just being left alone in an open bar overnight for an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So I would just constantly go in and sneak out bar, and then I'd have to buy stuff to replace it. It's just like, it was nuts. It was nuts. So if you're in that situation, well, at that point in time, I didn't realize it was an addiction. I knew I had a problem, but I should have just said to her, keep it in your bedroom. But even then, I would have had to have said to her, hide it, because if I'd got desperate and I was, craving, and people that are addicted will understand this, when you get a craving, there's nothing, you're not going to stop and meditate your way out of it. You just have to give into it. But as you work through and clean up your diet and do the work, it gets easy. It gets easier. The cravings do, especially if you get in the fats and the proteins. The cravings do subside. They really do. It's not easy. It's hard. But yeah, I think look at your environment where you can, clear out all your cupboards of anything that you don't want to be eating. If you've got family, even get a locked box with a padlock on it and you don't know the code. Get ridiculous if you have to.
Yeah, because I had a client once who drove to her sister's house in the middle of the night. She had a key and went into her freezer to get a certain kind of iced lolly.
It doesn't surprise me, and people don't talk about this because there's a shame behind it.
Yeah.
And this is a common thing with addicts. I've put food in the bin so many times because I don't want to eat it. I'm going to put it in the bin because I don't want to eat it. And then I'll go back into the bin hours later and pull it out because I'm having that craving. It's like pulling food out the bin. It's like, what is wrong with me?
But that's another point, the shame. We're all in this together. We all do ludicrous things. We need to stop kidding on that we don't.
I think the shame's there because when you don't realise it's an addiction, you think, I can't control this. And you feel shame because I should be able to control this. And you don't want other people to know that you've got this problem. But I think the more we talk about it and the more we just share, that it's difficult.
Lighten up. Yeah.
Yeah. So tidy up your environment. I know work can be a difficult place for sugar as well. I remember people used to bring in sweets and chocolate all the time when I worked in an office, and you could watch and see. Like, I would sit and I'd get up from my desk every 2 minutes and get a chocolate, and I'd eat half the box, and one of my colleagues would eat the other half, and then nobody else would touch it. And I'm like, well, we were obviously the two addicts in the office. It's like,
well, somebody said that to me. Working from home, they lost 2 stone because the people weren't coming in all the time with crap.
And then you've got the feeders. There was a lady at my work that used to come around the office with a packet of chocolate biscuits. She was like, what's her face from Father Ted? What's her name? I can't remember. Anyway, the old lady in Father Ted that was feeding them all, and she's like, go on now, go on, go on, go on, go on. And this woman would come round and she wouldn't take no for an answer. The feeders. So I think, I think that's an emotional thing as well. People wanting to feed people. I know I'm a feeder, but I think we need to stop pushing food on people. I think that's a difficult one for people.
Like pushing a drink on. It's like, if they say no, just accept that.
Yeah.
Rather than going, oh, why not? What's wrong? Come on, a wee bit. Just like shut up. Just accept that.
And then you've got everything in moderation. We can just moderate, but an addict can't moderate. I think even most people, we don't even know what moderation on sugar looks like. The World Health Organization, I think I need to learn these properly. I think it's like 6 teaspoons a day for children and 12 for adults, but it's not a lot. And if you're on a diet of processed food, it's difficult. The other thing I would say, bit of advice is going back to this triangle. When you're in these dense energies in the bottom, that's when you're going to be craving the foods. That's what we're talking about. When you've got stress in your life, there's difficult things going on. There are times in our lives where we're not going to be able to focus on getting off sugar, and it's just a fact. But what we need to do is work towards moving up this pyramid, moving from the dense energies into the lighter energies. And that's a lifelong journey. I think a lot of the stuff that you teach, the letting go, I know there's I mean, I wouldn't say I've had a lot of therapy, but I have had therapy, which has been helpful. If you've had things happening in your childhood that have affected you, we need to deal with all that. If you're not dealing with your internal environment as well as your external, you're not going to get out of that bottom level. You need to start, and it's uncomfortable. And I always say this, we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's like the Vipassana course for 10 days. I was sitting on my ass from
over Christmas and New Year, I may add.
Yes. But I didn't want to go home for Christmas. I really wanted to see my family, but I knew I would just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. And I thought I just need to not do that and do anyway. Been wanting to do this for 20 years, and it came up. It was the right time. But yeah, you're on your mat 4:30 in the morning, until 9 o'clock at night, meditating. I think there's 11 hours of meditation a day. 3 or 4 of those hours are group meditations where you have to be there. But the other, 5, 6, 7 hours are all self-directed. You get yourself on that mat. So it's what you put in is what you get out. So, and again, when you're in those dense, lower vibrations, doing something like that, it's not, if it's on your radar, you're like, that's impossible. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. If I'd done it 20 years ago, I probably would have done it. I might even have walked on day 2, and be like, I can't do this. And so I think the timing was definitely right for me. I know there's a website now called BetterHelp, I think it is. It's a online therapy. So you can sign up to a therapist. You don't like the therapist, you can change to a different one. So I think that, that wasn't available 20 years ago when I was starting out in this journey. So I think there's a lot more there. We're talking about this, there's nobody talking about this 20 years ago when I was struggling with it. So I think that's a key thing as well. But yeah, get yourself on my Substack. I'm going to start on a Tuesday doing Tuesday chats, which will be chatting around things that people are struggling with. But my plan, my vision is to actually have people creating their own little hubs in their communities to support each other through sugar and food addiction. Not even sugar and food addiction, just wanting to move out of that lower level of vibration into the higher vibrations. And we need to.
I was thinking that because Lou, there's a lot of questions popping up. Somebody's asking, do you not get a numb bum meditating?
Oh my God, you're in agony the whole week. You get a numb bum, but I maybe shouldn't be telling you all this because it's probably going to put people off. But I think knowing what you're getting yourself into. So the 3 group sittings that you do a day are for an hour, and you're not allowed to move. You have to sit. You're not allowed to uncross your legs. You're not allowed to unclasp your hands. You're not allowed to open your eyes. So when I first went out, I thought, there's no way I'm going to sit for an hour and not move. I mean, that's impossible. I tell you something, when you're sitting in a room and you're bored and you're uncomfortable, there's nothing else to do. And it's what we were talking about, the power of the mind. And you're like, and you're gonna, and then you're like, I've got an itch, can't scratch, got an itch. Yeah, and what the whole course basically is, what he teaches, is brilliant. I mean, Goenka passed away 10 years ago. But all his teachings, he recorded the whole course in 1991, and all the chants and all this. So every single meditation's all audio. And he's such this sweet little Indian man. Every evening you get an hour's kind of discourse where he talks you through, and it's always relevant to what you've been through that day. And he's so funny, he's such a lovely man. Yeah, and I've gone off. Oh yeah, sitting, getting a numb bum, sitting silent and not moving. So yeah, you've got nothing else to do. So it then becomes a challenge between you and your mind. You're like, well, I've got to sit here quiet without moving for an hour. And I don't know, well, for me, something like, well, I'm doing it because I'm here, and but yeah, I had pain in my back, I had excruciating pain in my knees, but you work round, you could, there was a couple of people that left, the girl in my room, but I think she was sick. But I can see on day 2 and day 6 are the 2 days they say you're statistically most likely to leave. And on day 6, I remember thinking, I can see why people leave. I can't remember what I was thinking, but I was thinking,
People give up, don't they? And this is
do,
the whole
yeah.
thing that we're talking about resilience. Just man up and get on with it. Do you know what I mean? It passes.
Yeah.
But I think
Except
we're
it's
now,
this,
we're so conditioned now to almost think, oh, well, it's poor wee me and I deserve this. And it's just
yes,
like, oh my God, look at your bodies. And, I've been talking about this all week as well because Nikki was in RAH for 5 days. And I was like, oh my God, get me back on path, on track with my protocols, because the alternative is not pretty and not nice. And Joe Dispenza says that don't wait for the crash. Get in with it's always about
yeah,
prevention, but
yeah,
most of us are just not good at thinking, I want to stay, even if you're not want to be an athlete or a supermodel, you want to be able to walk and run and play with your grandkids.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and that's the reality. If we don't, and I think the other thing with sugar, vanity, it's very aging,
It
isn't
is. Yes.
it? Well,
Yeah, it takes the moisture out your skin or something. I think it makes you more wrinkly. The other thing I was going to talk about actually is protocols, because that's something that if you're in that lower level dense energy, if you're really stuck in the foods or sugar addiction, I had this that it's really difficult. Like I'd wake up in the morning, back 3 or 4 years ago when I was eating ultra processed food all the time. And I'd lie in my bed and I was like, right, I need to get up. I need to meditate. I need to make my breakfast. What am I going to make for my breakfast? Oh, I don't know what I'm going to have. Maybe I'll not have breakfast today. Maybe I'll just wait till lunch. Oh, but yeah, I need to do yoga as well. And it was just this constant stream of all these things I needed. And I just got so overwhelmed that I just lay in my bed for hours, not able to get up. So I think if you're in, there's a term for it where your brain's doing this and it's caused by the sugar. So if this is happening to you, you're not going to be able to do all the protocols. It's decision overwhelm. So if you're in that situation, I would say just focus on the food. Forget about the meditation. Forget about I'm not saying forget about exercise. Go for a walk, but focus all your energy on sorting out the food. If you can sort out the food, everything else will come from that.
Well, this is the thing, the gut's feeding the heart and the brain, and this is why it's critical that we understand this. But also, that's what I'm saying to people, because a lot of the clients that come to me are young women with children, and they do not have time to put anything else into their lives. And
Yes.
that's why I love intermittent fasting, because all you're saying is, I'm not even saying don't eat this and don't eat that. I'm just saying don't eat for the last 3 hours before you go to sleep. That's
Yeah.
all. The Wi-Fi
Yeah.
out the room.
Yeah.
Just
And
that's the one thing. It doesn't cost anything. Every single person can do it if they're willing to man up and take control of
yeah.
the situation again and really determined. So just choose one thing. And I know that during the end part of last year, I was in a really heavy place of grief and what's the point, and way down in that vibrational pyramid, and I couldn't have cared less about protocols. And it's ironic, isn't it? Because you ran the community with me. We could see that, people, they don't want to do anything because they're so in that dense energy. But how do you get out of that dense energy? Well, for me, going and living in the sun takes you out like that.
Yeah.
That's not a solution that's
Getting
available
in
to
the cold
everybody.
water, definitely for me. I remember,
Acknowledging that you're in that energy and going, right, that's why I don't want to do anything. I'm apathetic. There's no
yeah,
point. And then you can go, right, well, let's stop eating 3 hours before I go to bed.
yeah,
Try that one thing first. Because
yeah,
even getting into cold water's a step too far for a lot of people.
it is, yeah,
So we're looking for things that make it inclusive, that everybody can do. That
yeah,
one thing, so you've digested the food, regardless of whether it's food or not. And then during the night, you're sleeping properly, because of course the ultra processed food also ties right into crap sleep, doesn't it?
totally, yes,
And the levels of sleep that you need to be in for the body to restore and repair. And I
yeah,
think, would you say that your education has helped you to make better choices?
definitely. But yeah, definitely, without a doubt, everything I've learned has helped me make better choices.
Uh-huh.
But when you're an addict, you can't make those choices. It's like your brain's
This is
making them
this is the
for
reality,
you.
and this is when you
But
need the community.
yeah, and the other thing I would say, and you say this all the time, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not taking action on that knowledge, nothing's going to change. You need to get out your comfort zone. And it's not easy. It's difficult. I know people have stressful, busy lives. Yeah. Have we got any more questions? Do you want to answer some questions?
If ping your questions in, guys. Can we talk too about replacement? Because we know that it's easier to replace a
Yes.
habit than to take one out and leave a big gaping
Yeah.
hole of
It's
madness.
better to move towards something you want than to move away from something you don't want. So I did NLP years and years ago. This was something we looked at. Is it an away from or is it a towards? So focus on the towards. What do you want? Don't look at what you don't, I don't want to be eating crap food. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to feel uncomfortable anymore. I want to be fit and healthy. I want to be eating well, because you think about it with a rocket getting up off the earth, the amount of energy that's involved to get that up into space is
Yeah.
enormous. And then when you think about it free falling back down to earth, it's effortless.
Yeah.
So I think that just a mindset tweak there I was listening to a friend the other day. I was on a call with her, and I think 3 times she said, "I'm so sick of something or other." And we're quite good at, calling each other out and stuff like that. So I said to her, "Do you realise you said 3 times in this conversation that you're so sick?" She's like, "Oh my God, really?" And I'm like, "What about you're so ready?" Because she was so sick of working the job she was working in. "What about you're so ready for something new and better?" Just flipping the mindset, something
Start
that
with the
simple
words.
can make all the difference. Yeah.
How can I make this easier on myself?
Yeah.
What would it take for me to feel that this was effortless
I love
rather
that.
than that negative affirmation?
Yes. What would it
And
take for me to get where I want to go?
yeah, that's access and consciousness and actually tuning into how the brain works. Ask the question,
Yeah.
because you're guiding this ship. You're either guiding it the wrong way or the right way. In the Sedona method, we talk about attraction and repulsion, but it's also owning the revulsion and looking at it and not being scared, because it's just a feeling.
Well,
And
that's
all
that's
you do
interesting
is
because the
change.
whole I don't know if I've said this, I maybe had another conversation, but the whole Vipassana course is about alleviating misery. And Goenka says that all misery comes from either craving or aversion. So what they teach you to do is just to be equanimous. He uses that word so many times, it's brilliant.
I like it.
Equanimous. So you're not craving anything and you're not having we're always complaining. The weather chat's down in that bottom level of the triangle.
Oh, I
Catching you out.
know, I know, I know, I know, I know.
We love our weather chat, don't we? But what does it, we're a bit, we don't like the cold weather. We're always complaining about it. But yeah, since I've come out of the course, the weather's not really bothered me anymore. It's weird. So he teaches you this technique that you can still enjoy things, but it's the attachment to them. So you're learning to remove this attachment from either the cravings or I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, or I really want this, I really want this. And that's what brings the misery when you don't get what you want.
Well, you've
You
gone
get the
into the
misery.
past or gone into the future. It's the same thing. You're not in the
Yeah,
present moment of this is
yeah.
just the way it is. Our
And
beautiful friend Rachel Caden's asking, what does equanimous mean?
oh,
Neutral, it means.
equanimity,
She knows fine. She's just trying
I
to.
can't even say it. Equanimity and equanimous. Equanimous. But he says it all the time throughout the course. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Remain
that's definitely a new word I
equanimous. Be
will be
diligent.
bringing into the chat. Because it's like when I talk about the microtubules and, being in tune, the strings that run through the cells and the cells just hanging out in that equilibrium, that state of harmony in tune. It's the same thing, isn't it? As soon as you start going, but what if you
Yes.
literally take the cells out of that state, that tuneful state, because we're a musical instrument and
Yes.
we're all, nobody's taught us properly how to
Oh, and you feel
use it.
that's the amazing thing about this course is it made me realize how disassociated I was from my body when I went in. I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I thought I was in quite a good place, but I came out because you're scanning your body all day, every day. And you start to, you feel this. And I mean, I can feel it now. I'm talking about it. He goes into talking about how we're all just subatomic particles and we're vibrating. He talks about all that. It's brilliant. But I can actually feel my body, the tingling vibrations of it now, which I was never able to feel before I went in. It's kind of
Well, the
something I can.
biofield viewer actually shows you that. It shows you all the colours moving. It shows you the frequencies. You know, it shows you that everything that you say, everything that you feel, everything that you believe, everything you perceive, everything that you do is affecting your health,
Yeah.
you know? And we're fed so much fear, you know?
Yeah.
And also, you know, there's a concern, I think, around even using that term sugar addiction. It's then people start fixating on it, you know?
Yes. I
Because it's
know.
just like, it's just a thing, just like this. You know,
Yeah.
it's we
It's
have to.
almost like we need to just park that. I realise that now. Park that. Just focus on what I can be done.
Yeah, we
Because
can't help you.
there's the three things when we feel a negative emotion. This is you do with the Sedona method.
Mhm,
But he talks about this in the terms of we're either suppressing something, like we're pushing that emotion down because we don't want to feel it, or we're expressing it, we're getting angry or we're crying or whatever. And in society, we're told that expressing our emotions is a
I
good
know.
thing. I think it is to an extent in some situations, but at the same time, you're still feeling that. So what they do with the Vipassana is they take the third step thing that you can do is just observe.
Mhm.
And that's what you're doing with the Sedona method. You're letting go, but you're stepping back and saying, well, actually, I could get angry at this, but and it's a skill. It takes time to learn. And I think the Vipassana course is like a fast track kind of head start
You
on
need to
that.
keep the training up, don't you? That's the thing. Well, I mean, I
Absolutely.
know that with Sedona,
Yeah,
I've experienced bliss and
yeah.
dissolution there.
Well,
Uh,
they say if you can meditate for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, once you come out, for a year, you'll have that set for life. And I've been meditating for twice a day for an hour since I came
I've
out. And
only got 11 months to go.
And I know, and it's not been easy. I mean, I don't feel like it's a chore to sit down and do it, and I can sit now for an hour and meditate. And it's like
Oh,
before
God.
I went in, I was struggling to do. I could do 10 minutes at a push, 15, 20 minutes. I'm checking my phone, going, "Is it not up yet? What time is it?" It's like whereas now I can sit for an hour twice a day. So I've had that training. It's like boot camp for the mind. It's
Ah.
brutal, but
But
it
like we
gets
were,
you into that space. So, but now instead of trying to fit my meditation in around my life, I'm fitting my life around my meditation.
you have the luxury of being able to do that. And
I
we
have,
all know that if
yes.
you've got young children, you
It's
know, by the
not
time
an
it comes to
option.
that time at night, well, the morning's not, because, you know, Joe Dispenza's work, up at 4 in the morning and meditate for 2 hours.
Yeah,
Aye, brilliant if you can do that. But the people I work with, that's just not an option. And like we were saying, there's lots of different variations of this that you can do. I mean,
yes,
me, it's Sedona method and breath work.
yeah,
Takes me right
definitely.
in there, gets me into that calm state. So, and this is why there's a myriad of solutions that we're offering. And if you can get on that, we'll put a link to that
Yeah.
Vipassana course that you
I
did.
think
So,
as well saying that, I've tried a lot. I mean, I think when you're in that dark space where you're trying to get out, you try and you say this, people say they've tried things. How long do they try them for before they give up?
five
But I think
seconds.
I know sometimes you're just not in the headspace where you can keep at it. But I think as well, there's that not everything works for everyone. Like I went down the road of doing theta healing and I
Mhm.
did the first weekend training, did nothing for me. I got nothing out of it. I didn't resonate with it. It just wasn't for me. So I think you need to experiment. You need, Vipassana is definitely not for everyone.
Mhm.
As you say, you've got your cold water and your Sedona. It's a journey to find what works for you. It's an exploration. It's an adventure. Try out different things.
Well, I always say to people, how much time do you really genuinely have? And does it feel comfort? And start there. So if it's
Yeah,
5 minutes,
yeah,
then you
and
go. So instead of thinking you have to do everything for an hour, I don't know who invented that
I
idea.
know. Yeah,
So then you go, so same with breath work. You can do the 4-7-8. It takes 1 minute to do 4 rounds of that. That will change your
yeah,
state. If you've got 20 minutes, if you've got an hour, I love a full hour's breath work. But, you know,
yeah,
because I've been living with my daughter and actually realizing how much time and energy it takes to run a house again, it's a really good learning experience. I know I had three
yeah,
kids, you know, and I was a single parent most of the time because my husband was a fisherman. So I know how you don't have a minute, but you
yeah.
forget. So you and I are in a very luxurious position, which is we've got tons of
Well,
education, we've got time, and we'll go wherever we want to go and do whatever we want to do. But if you're kind of trapped in that kind of treadmill of life that so many people are on now. You've got children, you've got after school activities, maybe your relationships are challenging, you've got work. You know, it's, you know, really by the time it comes to the weekend, you're just like that. And that's why I like sound baths and sound therapy,
Yeah.
because you can just lie. It's something that you can do. But so I was talking about protein balls, raw chocolate. Nikki's got this chocolate. It's gross. I mean, as you know, I'm not a big chocolate fan anyway. I don't mind a little bit in something, but
Yeah.
it's the obviously the healthier the chocolate, less pleasing it is, I believe.
Yes.
And I can only eat a couple of squares because it's full of antioxidants and omega-3. So,
Yeah.
you know, I know it's good for me, and I'm not going to, you know, shunt my blood sugar, but I just don't like it. And I'm thinking I could melt that down and put a date and some nuts and seeds in
Yeah.
it. So that's, you know, I think
Yeah.
what we're really saying is find something that you can do.
Yeah.
Probably space your meals out, blood sugar wise, get your fats up, your proteins up. And I'm saying make your own desserts, put them in the freezer so that
Yeah.
you've got something that's have it
Yeah.
after your meal, have your sugar after your main meal, so that you're not doing without. You know, but you know that that sugary whatever it is or sweet.
Yes.
Can you talk about sugar alternatives that are not going to cause havoc?
Well, all the alternatives are just, you know, it does the body sees. I'm not going to use that word, but yeah, no, all the sugar, it depends. Like the natural sugar alternatives are just going to do exactly the same. You know, so you've maybe got honey, or you've got, I don't know, coconut sugar, or you know, the brown sugar, the healthier, the perceived healthier ones, but they just do exactly the same thing in your body. Even if you've got like maple syrup or agave syrup, they're still going to send your blood sugars up. And then when you get to the alternatives, things like stevia, and I don't really know, I've not explored a lot of them, but they do exactly the same thing as well. Because it's what we were saying, they're empty. There's nothing there to fill you up. So your body is, and I think a good example of it is the diet drinks, the diet Coca-Cola and stuff like that. So I can't remember where I was reading it, but there was a study done. And it was, I think it was that podcast I was talking about with you. There's a brilliant podcast with Dr. Lustig and Andrew Huberman that talks about all this. But it's 3 hours long. I might do a blog post on it to break it down for people so it's a bit easier to. But they did this study they got people either drinking water, diet drink, or a full sugar drink. And obviously the people on the water, there was no difference. The people on I think it was like for 4 weeks they did it and they had to drink a certain amount a day. The people on the full fat sugary Coke put on 9 pounds. But the people that were drinking the diet soda drinks put on 2 pounds. Now, there's nothing in there to make them put on that 2 pounds. They should have had the same results as the water. So although it was a lot less, what they were saying is because your body gets that hit of the sugar, and normally if you're eating sugar naturally, you'll also have all the bits that come with it, you know, all the nutrients, the fiber, especially probably if it's fruit or something that you're eating, which then I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, so basically what they're saying is if you're drinking the diet drinks, your body thinks you're getting nutrients in
Sends
because
a message, yeah,
to the brain that you're actually eating food, but you're not eating food. So then your body's still hungry for food, so you're eating more. So the diet drinks, although maybe marginally better than the full, I always say if you're going to eat,
neurotoxic.
I always say if you're going to drink fizzy drinks, drink the sugary stuff because you'll drink less of it because it is. But yeah, I mean,
Don't
it's
drink
better.
them at all.
I mean, I could share the story with you of how I got off fizzy drinks because that was my nemesis for forever.
Okay, I think that'd be helpful for people.
It's pretty gruesome, but I think it and it's not something I really want to be sharing to the world, but I think if it helps people. So I started off drinking Iron Brew as a teenager. My addiction started when I was a baby. Because that's the earlier you start, this is why the food industry is targeting children, because earlier you start someone on sugar, the more likely they are to have an addiction throughout life. So as a baby, my mum would put sugar into my formula milk, not realizing it already had sugar in it. So I was getting a double whammy of sugar as a newborn baby. And she told me this story that we were on holiday when I was about 3 or 4. She'd gone upstairs to do something in the hotel. I was in the restaurant with my dad. And she said to my dad, watch her. My mum came back down. I was sitting on the floor with a bowl of sugar cubes, just eating them one by one. you know, and I don't think that's normal for, I don't know if that's normal for a kid.
I think all kids like sugar, really.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, but yeah, it was, so
But
even from
putting
that
it in
young
your
age,
formula, that's next level.
yeah, I know. So anyway, so as a teenager, I started drinking Iron Brew. I never liked the taste of it, and then I got a taste for it, and I was drinking a 2 litre bottle a day, rotted all my teeth at the front. And then I had hypnosis to stop me drinking Iron Brew because I was like, I cannot keep doing this because I knew it was detrimental to my health, and it was detrimental to my bank balance as well. But the craving, I mean, there might be people watching this that understand the craving you have for it is just insane. I worked up north once and I'd drive 15 miles to the shop just to get a bottle of Coke to get my, you know. So I had hypnosis to stop me drinking Iron Brew and it worked. And then I started drinking Pepsi. So I had hypnosis to stop me drinking Pepsi and it worked. And I started drinking Coca-Cola. And then that was when I was like, right, I'm missing the point here. This is not working. So I ended up going to Thailand. I found this retreat out there years and years ago. I mean, I say retreat, it's the woman that runs it's amazing. I can maybe share more about her. She's phenomenal. And it's just this little wooden shack on the beach. You just turn up at every day to do this detox. So you're doing enemas and the whole shebang, all the stuff that you do, Lilia, with the juicing and everything. But it's in Thailand, you're warm, you're swimming in the sea every day. I mean, it's amazing. But I'd gone to try and sort out my addiction to Coca-Cola. I mean, I didn't even realize I had an addiction at this point. I just knew something had to change with this. I could not get enough Coca-Cola. So can't believe I'm sharing this with you. It's pretty gruesome. So we're halfway through the week. And I had a little bungalow just a bit further along the beach. So we'd meet in this, and it literally was a wooden shack on the beach. It had 2 rooms in it, and we used to meet on, one was the kitchen and one was kind of like a storeroom. And then we'd meet out on the veranda, and you know, it's like a big balcony. We'd sit and we'd have our class. I think there was only 3 of us in the class. It was quite a quiet. She usually had about 10 or 12, but there was just me. There was a girl from China, and there was another English girl, another British girl. So we were sitting on the porch, and she would give us lessons every day about the body and all the stuff you teach. And I knew a lot of it because I'd done the nutrition, but it was interesting. So anyway, this one day, I felt this overwhelming urge, and we'd been taking like salts, Epsom salts, baths, and she'd been giving us lots of, I don't know, charcoal and stuff. Anyway, she was giving us loads of stuff to help flush all the stuff out the body. Anyway, I was like, I need to go to the toilet, like really desperately need to go to the toilet for a number 2. And you know that way when you're like, the toilet was in between these 2 rooms, and like there was no, it was cardboard walls essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my god! And there's no way I could have run back. My bungalow was, you know, a couple of minutes away, but there's no way I would have made it back. So I was like, I just need to go now. So anyway, I got into the toilet, and one of the girls was shouting, "We can't hear anything." I'm like, that's really not helping. Anyway, oh my god, I can't even. I don't even want to tell you, but this yellow, thick, viscous, neon clear gel goo just started coming out of me, you know, like my back end, like just, and the smell, it was putrid. Like I've never smelled anything that awful in my life. The smell, I was gagging. It was
Is it
so
alive?
I was just like, I was like, what on earth is going on? This is just, I knew something was coming out of me that didn't need to be in me, but I was just like, what the hell? And it just went on and on. This white, the clear yellow, like it was thick, you know, like I don't even know what something similar. Anyway, I don't need to labour the point. It was disgusting. It was pure. So I spoke to the woman that runs it's called Hilary as well, actually. So I spoke to Hilary about it, and she said Candida coming out. I was just like, that was such a watershed moment for me. I was like, oh my god, I've been carrying that around in my body for, you know, just.
That's a really relevant point, actually, you know, that the sugar feeds the candida. And it can also be the thing that's created the imbalance, the dysbiosis in the gut by feeding the wrong army, as I talk about it in the tummy jungle. You're either feeding the army for health or they're feeding the army for disease and unease. So, yeah, I've got Dr. Deborah Drake coming on tomorrow night. I'm so excited. The first live to talk about parasites, worms, candida, etc., because that
Brilliant.
is a huge, huge issue for sugar addicts. That can
Yeah.
all actually be the thing that's driving the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
So obviously that was why I was having that overwhelming craving for it.
mhm.
But I was in a really lucky position because I came back from Thailand and that's when I went straight into the community with you for 3 months. So
That's right.
so
So
then
you
I didn't
were
have access to any of it. And then for the rest of that year, it was fine. I didn't even, the smell, I can't remember it now, but that smell lingered with me for months afterwards. And the whole experience just completely put me off drinking it ever again. And then I went to stay with my sister. I ended up staying with my sister for 5 months at the beginning of the following year. And she's always got diet drinks in the fridge. I ended up staying there for 5 months. I was back on the Coca-Cola. I was back
wow.
on it.
Well, this is the reality, isn't it, of what happens? And I
Yeah,
definitely found that if it's there, I'm much more
yeah,
like. Sometimes my mindset's completely clear, but you get a
yeah.
bit weak, probably because you're down the vibrational scale, and then
Hmm.
you make choices that aren't clever. And
Yeah,
that's why it's so much more helpful if we can all do it together. But
yeah,
listen, let's answer a couple of more questions before we finish up, because this is
yeah.
a subject we could be on here all morning.
Yeah, and I'm going to
Um,
start writing a lot about this and a lot about
mhm.
how you can get out of these, lower energies and
Somebody's saying, I have found homemade chocolate more addictive for me compared to high cocoa shop bought shop. What would that be?
what would be it's just are you putting sugar in it? Are you putting alternative sugars in it? The thing is, there's a thing we call transference. That when you get off, so this is what happened to me. I got off the sugar, and this happened at the community. So I wasn't eating sugar for 3 months. Didn't have access to it. And the transference is obviously transferring your addiction to something else, and you can transfer it. So I was transferring mine to fat. So I
Mhm,
was eating spoonful after spoonful of nut butter and coconut
mhm,
fat.
mhm.
So, and I find as well, if you're making alternatives, like there's loads of alternatives out there for sweet treats, using dates, using cashew nuts. I'm addicted to cashew nuts.
Yes,
Everyone's going to be different. You need to find out what
what it is.
your
But at
things
least
are.
if the thing you're addicted to is taking you towards health rather than disease.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Honey, stevia, or maple syrup with coconut oil.
Yeah, so the sugar's still there. If
Yeah.
you're addicted to sugar, the stevia and the maple syrup is still going to cause that craving, and it could be the fats as well. What was the other ingredients? What were the other
Eh,
ingredients?
honey, stevia, or maple syrup and coconut oil.
Yeah, the coconut oil could be as well. And yeah,
Mhm,
like Lilia says, if you're craving things or binging things, it's better to do it on that than it is on the ultra
mhm.
processed stuff. But it's a it takes time because it's almost like you go through phases. Because I went through that phase of doing all the kind of healthy snacks, like doing the chocolate with the
Yeah,
coconut oil,
yeah, yeah.
a little bit of maple syrup. But I found I'd just eat the whole lot, like I would with a normal bar of chocolate. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
then I found out I was addicted to cashew nut. I can get addicted to cashew nuts. I couldn't stop. I can't when I start eating them, I can't stop. So it's finding what they call them
Triggers
trigger
are.
foods. Trigger
Mhm.
foods. So finding out what your trigger foods. So in that case, it could be the sugar, it could be the honey or the stevia, or it could be the fat. Um,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
think, the other thing I'd like to quickly touch on, we need to do another live like this because there's so much coming up, but is that it's not just white sugar, it's white carbohydrate as well, simple carbohydrate as
White,
well.
white,
So
white
people, oh,
flour.
I'm not a sugar addict, I'm more savoury. So, but it's white bread, white
Yeah.
cakes, things that are maybe a wee
And
bit
it's
cheesies,
I'm
slightly.
addicted to cheese, yeah. And it's the same concept. Flour is, it's like we talked about with the powders being made from the original natural product. Flour
Mhm.
is made from wheat or whatever grain. But again, it's gone through this massive process and it comes out at the end as a white powder. So our bodies don't need to break that down. And with the flour, it is sugar and it just goes straight into our bloodstream as glucose.
Mhm. Absolutely. Shelby's saying, uh, yeah, a lot of the help and support is in faraway countries. And again, if you're a young mum, or not even a particularly young mum, if you're a parent at home or you might be looking after your own parents, you can't get away to these things. And that's what we want to change. And I know
Yeah,
that your idea, Hilary, with the Sweet Escape is to create communities for people where they can, even if you can talk online, that's going to be helpful. And I was
yeah.
thinking Lou, you're still on the line, actually physically getting people together
Well,
to.
that's my plan as well, is I want to,
Uh-huh,
get people helping themselves. I'm going to put together a pack where people can meet however often they need to and
uh-huh,
do the work together. And like the issue with, parents with young children, especially single mothers with young children. I mean, that's a huge issue. And we've got some ideas about that. There's going to be a lot happening with Heal Scotland this year that's going to help people a lot more. Yes, stay tuned for some exciting developments in the next few months. But yeah,
yeah,
it's not an easy, we need, and you talk about this, Lilia, in Indigenous tribes, children have on average of 36 caregivers. We were never designed as a species to
takes a
live
community,
alone.
a village to raise a child.
One person cannot raise a child. It's just not. But and single mothers are trying to do it, and I take my hat off to them because I do not know, how
How
they
you
do
can
it.
look after your children in your home and then look after yourself.
And take care of yourself
Um,
and your children. Yeah, it's a lot.
well, somebody's saying if you don't have the finances, and this is my big thing about intermittent fasting and fasting, it's free. So even if you don't have the money or and this is something that's a Heal Scotland, the Good Food Project, there's lots of things happening, lots of amazing things happening, lots of gardens that you can go and get involved in and do a wee exchange for decent food. We have to change it. There's no point in sitting back greeting about it. Get the ideas, get them rolling, and let's take action on this, because it's outrageous in a place like Scotland that has brain food in abundance in our rivers. Well, maybe not in the quantities we used to have it, in our lochs, in our rivers, in our hillside. Every single like indigenous food that we have is brain food. Even all the berries, etc., that grow in the summer, everything is just nature gives it to us at the right time. It's all there. Sorry, vegans. The game, the poultry, all of that. Even our farming is still miles ahead of most Western developed countries. We have it all here and we're not eating it. A lot
Yeah.
of the veg is going down to England. It's mad. So we need to stop blaming the system and start looking and going, right, what can we do? Because this change, this revolution is going to come from us. And big part of that is stop blaming, shaming, and complaining, go, right, what can I do? And how can I help? And how can I support the people in my community? Get around your gardens, get out and take action. It's the only way it can possibly happen.
And I think we're gonna make that a bit easier as well, because I think a lot of the time people want change, they want to make a difference, but they just don't know how. And I think that's partly why Heal Scotland's set up, to support people that that are maybe struggling financially, that don't know where to look for help. So, and we're very early days with Heal Scotland, but I mean, I can see your vision, Lilia, that we're going to create a space where we do support and help each other to thrive. So yeah,
It's already happening.
it
There's
is. Yeah.
phenomenal stuff going on. And that's why we want the Heal Scotland platform, so you can go on and find out what's happening, where are the gardens, let's get involved, let's take some action. There's lots of things you can do, even if you're not able to get out the house, that you can do on your laptop. There's podcasts, there's tons of ways. Get yourself educated. But the biggest thing is that we're being played absolutely, and to the detriment of our health and our happiness and that of our children and our grandchildren, and that is completely unacceptable. And the government ain't going to fix it. They're just making it worse, lining their own pockets. We have to wake up and realise we need to reconnect with nature. Simple as. It's so insultingly simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. You get mortgages to pay and all the dramas that we've got going on round about. That's the systems fail, which maybe they were always meant to do. But anyway, listen, so let's do a kind of overview of that. Is if you're really, really struggling with addiction, and you're like, I really need to identify and own this, because I want better health, I want better vitality, I don't want to end up in any hospital in Scotland if I can possibly avoid it. So if you're intermittent fasting, the thing is you can have breakfast on intermittent fasting, you just have a longer window. And even a 14-10 window works for a lot of people. You just need to be very honest about it. It's this eating late at night. I cannot emphasize that enough. Have your healthy snacks, and if that doesn't work for you, maybe you have to take them out completely for a while. Just look at January. Don't look too far ahead. use the EFT to really help release and create new habits and beliefs. Hilary's got her new business, The Sweet Escape. She's got tons of knowledge and experience. She ran the 3-month community with me. We've lived it quite literally, with people who are addicted to the stories, addicted to the labels, addicted to complaining, blaming and shaming. All of that's playing a part. When you want to get up that pyramid from the lower echelons, the dungeons, up into these lighter frequencies where you get your sense of humour back, where it's easy to make good choices. Tribe up with people that are doing it, not with people that are not doing it, because you will inevitably get drawn back into the mire, because we're interconnected. That's the way it is. And that's part of your solution, isn't it, Hilary? Get the community.
Yeah, I mean, we've said that so many times, haven't we? It's all about community. It's working together.
The mums together that don't want their kids to have a lot of, ultra processed foods. If you're all doing it together, we're just much stronger and more powerful.
Yeah.
Simple, isn't it?
And as we go along, it'll be easier because we'll be working together and we'll come up with more solutions. And so we're on it. It's just, we just need to be patient. And
there's so many delicious flavours. Rory's food was just incredible. Delicious, indigenous, really thoughtfully prepared and cured, etc. food. Janice Klein, at the in the Wellness Hub, doing amazing stuff with pickles and ferments, and and so there's so many different things going on. But I know if you're busy and you don't have time and your head's like full, that maybe you can't actually, join in on these things right now. Just that 3 hours at night, that's the one thing you can focus on for now. And then as you start to feel stronger, more alive, more energetic, more curious, more motivated, then you can start adding in. But until then, peace out. So thanks a million, Hilary. Great to see you. And it's great to see the total high you've been on since that that retreat. It's so if you can send the somebody's wanting the Thailand details.
I'm not sure if they're running anymore, but I think she's going to be back up and running. But I can certainly send through some information about that. Yeah.
And the Vipassana that you did as well, and the link to your website, etc. And
there's one happening in Scotland at the end of February. I think did have spaces when I checked earlier this week. So you could get booked on that. Otherwise, I think there's 2 English centres in the south that they usually get booked up 3 months advance. So yeah, if you're
also going to be out at the 2 of our wild medicine festivals. So that's fantastic. So people can come and meet you there and join in the talks, and the programme for that will be coming out really, really soon. With the festivals, it's very much come and try, meet the people, the education, understand your own body, your own cells, your own mind, your own beliefs. You have to learn how to heal yourself and how to stay well. And how when you start going down that kind of wheel of like, oh, I'm just making poor choices, you can actually find people to help you bring you back out, because we're all in this together and we will all go up and down in the waves. That's how life works. You get flung a curveball that you didn't see coming, and how resilient are you? And we really need to take our power back from these clowns that are literally poisoning a lot of us to death. Anyway, on that very happy note, your questions in if you're watching this on replay, and Hilary and I will do our very best to get back to you. Tomorrow, you're going to have Janice Klein with a very simple and totally inexpensive carrot kraut demo. Janice is an absolute mine of wonderful information, and she's super passionate, and she's also been such a phenomenal help to Heal Scotland. She's also going to be at the festivals. I'm going to be talking at 1 o'clock about macros, your percentages, the percentages of proteins and fats and carbohydrates, and how you can look at the percentages for phenomenally better results once you understand it. And then at 6 o'clock, I've got Dr. Deborah Jake coming all the way from Canada, Chinese doctor, MD, Ayurveda, musician, and this woman will blow your mind with her holistic overview of the body. So please, if you can help us by spreading the word of all our events. We've got the Goddess Gatherings, we've got the festivals, and we've got the Wild Medicine Retreats. So if you can, that's the one massive thing you can do for Heal Scotland. All the profits go straight back in, and we want a place where you can come for free, preferably. I mean, it drives me insane that your health isn't any way connected to money, but for now, that's what we've got. But we're changing that. Hilary, magic to see you, darling. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you, Lillian.
Sunday.
Yeah, you too.
I'm away up to Barmolach to soak in the beauty up there. So huge love, everybody. Thanks for your time on a Sunday. Ciao.